Hey, what's up everybody? This is the Helpful Hacker, and today we are going to be going over the Windows PowerShell room from TryHackMe. So we'll jump right in and get started. So the introduction. Okay, so this introduction is just going to give you a quick intro into, well, Windows PowerShell basically. And it doesn't get too into it, but there is a difference between the Windows command line and Windows PowerShell. And to understand PowerShell and what it's all about, it's important that you've done the Windows command line room first. I have a walkthrough video of that on my channel, so you can check that out. And in this room, we're going to be learning about PowerShell, the kind of how the language works, and it is a bit more of like a, you can think of it almost, it's like if a coding language and a command line kind of merged as one. That's why they're talking about PowerShell's language, because it has a real language structure. And then we're going to run some basic commands and kind of understand why PowerShell is so useful. So read through all that and make sure you've done all the prereqs and then hit complete. And with that, we're done with task 1. Now it's on to task 2. What is PowerShell? So PowerShell. You can read through all this, you can read the brief history, and it's important, you should, but I think the best way to understand PowerShell is this little bottom portion, to be honest, where it really explains, what kind of sets PowerShell apart from other command lines. Now, why is PowerShell a thing? Because they realized a long time ago, hey, the systems that we're using, that we're administrators of and that we have to work with, are getting large and complex, like large corporations, and the command line just isn't quite doing it for us. Trying to manage thousands of things on a command line can be difficult, especially the more complex it gets. So because of that, PowerShell was created. So PowerShell is a bit more powerful. And so you can read through the history, which basically just says, hey, they needed something better than a command line. And you can read kind of the official book definition of what it is. But again, like I said, it's almost like a scripting language, command line, and coding language all kind of merged into one really cool thing. And now, why is it so cool? So this is why PowerShell is cool and why it's different than the Linux command line and the Windows command line. It's because everything in PowerShell is an object. And that's important to understand. Now, if you have a background in object-oriented programming, this will be a bit more straightforward. But in Linux and in, the regular Windows command shell, everything's text-based, right? So, and you can read this kind of little snippet right here, which basically says that. And so everything is normally text-based. The cool thing about PowerShell is things are objects, and objects can have properties, which are characteristics, and usually they have both. So they'll have multiple properties and they'll have multiple methods, which are actions. So here they give you the example of car is the object. It'll have properties like color, model, full level, or fuel level, and it'll have methods like drive, honk, horn, and refuel. And that's very different than, what we normally get in something like Linux or the Windows command line, where all of our files, instead of being objects with properties and, having methods that we can use on them and all that, it's just text-based. And we'll see as we go further down and learn, go through these tasks, why having methods and properties can be really useful. So read through that. If you don't know a lot about object-oriented programming, you should probably Google it. There's other rooms in TryHackMe that kind of go over what that is a bit. So check those out so you understand it, and then this will make quite a bit more sense. And hopefully down in these other tasks, we'll see why PowerShell is so helpful and why object-oriented programming is so helpful. So down to the question, what do we call the advanced approach used to develop PowerShell? I believe that's object. Wait, what was the? Is it just object oriented? I'm not totally sure about this. Oh, okay. Yeah. So object oriented. That's the answer. With that, we're done with task 2. So now you kind of have an idea what it is, but we'll get more into it in task 3, which is PowerShell basics. So I already have started my machine. I've started my attack box and I've started my target machine. So we can skip through that. Okay, so they're gonna have me jump on here. Go to internet. Go to this. Skip that, and then what is the throw in your IP. Okay, here we go. And what are the credentials? They're captain. Okay, there we go. So now, oh, come on, stretch out for me. Okay, so now we are in PowerShell? No, so here you can see there's no PS, so we're not in PowerShell, we're just in the Windows command line. So now they're gonna tell us all the different ways that you can normally start PowerShell, but in our case, because we're on the command line, we have to do it from the command prompt, and so we can just type in PowerShell and hit enter. And there we go, now we have this PS, so now we are in PowerShell. So basic syntax. So the way that PowerShell works, again, which is different than, you know, the Linux or the Windows command line, is that you have this verb noun syntax. And when you see that, it's called a commandlet, and it's CMD LETS, so commandlets, and they're super useful, and they're verb nouns, so they're very intuitive once you kind of understand the basics and get some of the naming conventions down. So the way it works is the verb describes the action and the noun specifies the object that you're performing it on. So here are a couple of examples they give you of this verb noun syntax. First, get content, which is going to retrieve or get the content of a file and display it in the console. And then set location, which is going to obviously set the current working directory or change the current working directory to whatever you put after set location. So this is kind of just some basics, and just to give you an idea, so get content would be similar to the cat command in Linux, and then set location would be similar to change directory or CD. But again, they're using this verb noun syntax, so that's why their commands look like this. So now basic commandlets, we can list all of the available commands by using get command, and if you type in get command, it'll give you a huge list of stuff. So let's do that. It's gonna be big. Yeah, see, so these are all the different commands, and we can see right here in this second row, they have that verb noun structure. They give us additional info like version, source, and the command type. And we'll get more into command types here in a bit. But yeah, so for each command info object retrieved by the commandlet, there's important information, and one of them is command type, and we can actually filter based on command type. So, and here's the example that they've given us. And so with this, I can actually just do get command, which again is telling the computer, hey, I want you to get all of the commands. But then by doing this dash command type, I am now filtering by command type. What command type do I want to filter by? I provide that input here, and I want to, filter by the command type function, which as we can see up here you have different command types, and one of them is function. So then that will only give me the command types that are functions. So if I wanted to, I could change this, and instead of command type, I could filter by name and put a very specific name. I could filter by version and then put a version number, or I could filter by source and then put a source, right? So we have all these commands, and these commands have properties, and so you can kind of start to see how object orientation and like the object-oriented programming can be helpful here, because we really can. It's easy to isolate things and pick things out based on a single characteristic and take action on that. So read through all this, go test this out in your own PowerShell terminal. I'm not going to do it just because they have a good example here, and it'll just give you pretty much the same output. So the next thing that they're going to teach us about is get help. So get help is a super useful command, and it's just going to give you, it's similar to the manual pages in Linux, or just like the general help pages in the Windows command line. And it's just going to give you all of this output down here that we can see. So it'll give you the name, quickly tell you what it does, give you the syntax, and then it even gives you examples. You can type in get help, get date /examples or -examples, and it'll give you actual examples of its usage. And that's what they talk about down here. So that's really useful. Get help. Again, you should treat it just like the Linux manual pages. If you see a command and you don't understand what it is, or you want to figure out what it is, just use get help. You'll be able to learn about it and know all about how it works. So keep that in mind. That should be a go-to. And then, yeah, if you need examples, you can do get help, your command, and then -examples, or -detailed if you want more information on it. So after going through that, they want to talk about get alias, and get alias is basically going to give you aliases for common commands. And why did they do this? So they did this because PowerShell was created after Linux and after the Windows command line, and people use them and had been using them for so long, and still today we use them a ton because, you know, not everybody learns PowerShell. And so there's common things like directory or change directory or cat or type or, you know, clear, stuff like that. So there's these commands that we're so used to typing, and PowerShell has all of those commands, but they're in this verb noun format. So to make things easier for us, they also have aliases. So if I type in cat, it knows, okay, that's get content. And so they just do that to make it a bit easier for us, and it's a lot quicker to type in cat, change directory, ls, make directory, stuff like that. So that's why they have aliases. And if you want to look at all the aliases, you can just use the command get alias, and it'll give you a long list of all of the aliases that you could use. And then of course you could do get alias, and then you could filter by name, so -name, and then give it a name like CD, and then it'll pull up this line and show you that CD stands for set location in PowerShell. But to make things easy, you can just use CD, and PowerShell will understand what you're trying to do. So aliases are super helpful. I'm going to use them quite a bit. You'll see me use them in this video. So just know that that's what's going on. There still are these verb noun commands, but we're just using aliases because sometimes the aliases are easier. So keep that in mind. And then another cool thing that makes commandlets and PowerShell so useful is you can download other commandlets. And you can do that from, they're called like modules. So it gives us an example right here, find module, name, PowerShell. So what that's going to do is if we look at the name, all of these have PowerShell in the name. And so it found all these modules. And if we want to, here's the description. So this is a PowerShell module for serializing and deserializing YAML, and we can download that. And it tells you how to do that. Yeah, you can just find module, and then down here you can install module. So that's super helpful. Another thing that they point out here is they use the wildcard, and the wildcard just basically means anything can go there. So that's why we get PowerShell dash, we get PowerShell dot, we get PowerShell and then the letter G, we get PowerShell and then the letter F. So anything can come after PowerShell. They just want PowerShell to be the first part, and then after that it's free game. So that's what the wildcard does. It's super useful. You'll see it used a lot, and it's important that you know how to use it because it'll help you find things and just navigate through lots of data better if you can use it effectively. So that's what that is, the wildcard. And then, yeah, so you should be able to find a module if you want it and then install it. So read through all that, take a look at their install example, and now let's get down to the questions. So how would you retrieve a list of commands that start with the verb remove? Okay, so that would be, first we do get command, and then we would want to filter. What are we filtering by? Name, I think. And then we don't have to use quotations. So I think it would be get name remove. Okay, so this is important. So they gave me that, but I did not include the wildcard, because if I had typed in remove, it would have looked, so they wanted the wildcard there. And then obviously the capitalization, I tend to just ignore it for the most part because I'm lazy. But yeah, so get command dash name remove wildcard. So that's how you would get any command starting with the verb remove. What commandlet has its traditional counterpart echo as an alias? Okay, so this is good. So now what they want to do, also by the way, CLS, that's will clear PowerShell. So what they want us to do, let's do get command, and then I want name, and what I want is I want echo in the name, and hopefully there we go. So we can see here, write output, right? So the command type is alias, its name is echo or write output. So I should just be able to paste that in there, and that's the right answer. Now, what is the command to retrieve some example usage for the commandlet new local user? So we have our good example right here. When you do the get help command, it'll tell you how to get examples. And so we have an example, so we can just copy that example. It's get help, and then it's the command. So in this case, it'd be new local user. And then we want, new local user. Did I put a space there? Yes, I did. And then examples. Is it example or examples? I think it's examples. It is examples. So that's how you would do that. Get help new local user examples. And with that, we've answered all the questions and we're done with task number 3. So now it's on to task number 4, navigating the file system and working with files. So this is where you're going to see a lot of aliases that you would normally use in either Linux or the Windows command line, whichever you're more comfortable with. You can usually use both. I'm going to be using a lot of Linux ones, so just keep that in mind that, I might be typing in ls, but what I'm really saying is get child item, right? Because that's the verb noun command in PowerShell that will list the files in the directory and directories in the location specified with the path parameter. And so they give you an example here. They do get child item, and then you can see, all these directories listed. So I'm going to do that, but instead I'm going to use my Linux alias, and it'll give me the same thing because typing in ls is so much faster. So there's that. And that's another reason why PowerShell is cool. It has so many aliases in it, and you can even like mess around and kind of add your own, that you could treat it almost like a Windows command line when you want to, and then still have the powerful usage of PowerShell when you need it. So that's cool. And then they have this path parameter, which is basically, we'll get into it, but for example, in Linux, if I were to say, well, I'll just give you an example. So I can do path, and then I could look inside desktop by doing, by giving it the actual path and all that. I think most of these folders are empty, so I'm not gonna do that because you won't see anything. But yeah, path is just like in Linux or Windows command line, you're telling it where to go. So, and they give you an example here. So set location, which if we remember, CD, so up here we have get child item, which is the same as dir in the Windows command line or ls in Linux, and then set location, CD, and then we're going to give it a path, and that path is going to be documents. Okay, so here the dot represents the current directory, so that's what we're saying. So we're saying from our current directory, wherever we're at, we want to go into documents. So set location, path, documents. But again, we have aliases. So let's just do CD desktop. And look at that, we've moved to desktop. We can also do CD ... and that'll send us back. Okay, so I'm just showing you this because these are the commands that I like to use because I learned on Linux. So, but just know that there is a PowerShell equivalent with the verb noun, then what you're filtering by, or what you're the path, and then you can type out the actual path if you need it. So that's kind of the overview of get child item and set location. So now we're going to take a look at create item. Now they say create item out up here, but when I was using it, I would get an error. I'm not sure why, but new item worked just fine. And I looked into it, and according to AI, which who knows how accurate that is, create item isn't right. So maybe this is a typo, or I don't know, or maybe I just don't understand it, but I know for a fact new item works. So for now, I'm just going to reference new item, and basically new item, pretty self-explanatory. You can make directories or you can make files, right? And so the way that they do that here is we can do new item, give it the path, and the path is going to include Captain Wardrobe, which is what we're making. So then what are we making? Are we making a file? Are we making a directory? We're making a directory. So when you execute that command, now there's a brand new directory named Captain Wardrobe. And then it's the exact same thing, but you can switch the item type to file. Here, they're creating a new item called captainboots.txt. So it's a file. So new item path, they give it that. They include the new item in the path. And then down here, captainboots.txt. Okay, so that's how you could, make that. And then let's see. And again, there's probably aliases. I don't know if this is one. If I do make directory hello. Okay, yeah. So again, aliases are pretty helpful with some of this basic stuff. And then let's try remove hello. And now what happens if I ls? Yeah, there we go. So again, it might seem right now, oh, well, that's kind of useless. What's the point in learning all of this verb noun stuff if I can just use aliases and it works fine? It's still important that you understand, because as you get deeper and deeper into cybersecurity, into TryHackMe, you're going to run into some pretty gnarly PowerShell stuff, because again, PowerShell is powerful and it can do a lot of things. And it's important that you can kind of understand how it works. And a lot of times, if you have a basic understanding of the syntax and if you have a little bit of experience with it, you can figure things out just by reading it. And so that's all very useful. So trust me, this does have utility. So again, here they have remove item commandlet, and then you provide the path. And then whatever you give the path of whatever you want to remove. So in the Windows command line, you would have remove directory and delete, which are separate commands. Here you can just do remove item, because again, everything's treated like an object, so you can remove that object or item. Another thing that they're going to show us is copy item and move item, so which is the same as copy and move in like the Windows command line or Linux, right? And so the syntax is pretty similar here, except for, again, they're doing this verb noun commandlet. Then they're going to give you the path. And first they're going to give you the path of what you want to copy, right? And then, or not there, this is get child item. So first copy item path. So what do you want to copy? And then dash destination, where do you want to put it? Pretty straightforward. And so we can see here they're copying captainhat.txt and they're going to put it in captainhat2.txt, and that's copy. And it's similar with move. They're treated the same. So I don't think we have to go too far into it. Again, if this is hard or if this isn't making any sense, it's probably would be really helpful for you to, have gone over the Linux fundamentals rooms from TryHackMe and the Windows command line room. So make sure you've checked those out if this is seeming a little too complicated. So read through all that, make sure you understand the example, go into your own command line, try to copy an item, and then try and remove it maybe, or try and copy an item to the same directory and then move it to a different one. So finally, what they're gonna have us do is use get content, which again is like the type command in the Windows command prompt or the cat command in Linux. And like with most things, if let's see, I just don't know. Are there any documents for me to actually show you? No, those are both directories. Okay, so I'm not going to give you an example, but you can check out their example, which they use get content. And again, we could use it the alias cat, which is what I like to do because I like to use Linux. So, and then, but if we do the get content, then you want to provide the path, and it's captainhat.txt. And then just like cat or type, you will see the contents of that file displayed on the console. So now that we've gone over all of those, we can get into the questions. So what commandlet can you use instead of the traditional Windows command type? So they're going to want the PowerShell version because this is the PowerShell room. And so that would be get content. And then next question, what PowerShell command would you use to display the content of C users directory? For the sake of this question, avoid the use of quotes. So what PowerShell command would you use to display the content? So this is a directory, not a file. So what you would want to do is, my guess is you would want to do get child item. And then, wait a minute, let me see the syntax here. Okay, yeah, so it's going to be get child item and then path. And then the path is going to be, what are we doing? User or users? Users. Yep. So get child item, right? Which we saw up, I think at the very top. Yeah, get child item, which is the same as the dir or ls command, because we want to see what's in there. And then we have to provide the path because we're using that verb, noun, PowerShell syntax. So how many items are displayed by the command described in the previous question? So we'll just paste that, get child item, 4. Awesome. So with that, we are done with task number 4. Now it's on to task number 3. So piping. So piping, again, much like Linux or the Windows command line, it's used for the same thing. You can do, you can take the output of one command and you can pipe it into the next command. So in this case, the example that they're giving you is they're going to get child item, which is the same as ls. So they're listing all of this, but then they're going to pipe that into sort object, and they're going to sort it by length. So now you can see we have 0, and now it's sorted all of this based on its length with directories here at the bottom. So again, very similar to Windows or Linux, so read through that if you're not familiar with how this works. You can either Google it or check out the Linux fundamentals rooms. So there's that, and they give you a really good explanation here as to how they do it, but it's basically what I just said. And then, yeah, this is also a useful command to know, sort object, and you can do that based on specific properties. So very helpful. And then you can also filter objects based on conditions by using where object commandlet. So then they give you an example here where you are trying to get all the text files. So what they do is first they list everything, so get child item, then they pipe that into where object, and now the property. So one of these properties that we see up here, extension, oh, I guess you don't see it up there, but it still is a property that they have because they're objects. So you can type property extension, and then this -eq, that is gonna be equals, and then they put .txt. So that's how they get this, and now you only have txt files. You don't have the directory. So that's helpful. You can read through this, and this kind of gives you a similar explanation, and they give you this equal operator. So equal to, and it's important to know the operators, so then they give you the long list of operators. It's just like any programming language. You have not equal to, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So it's important that we know those. So read through all those. Another thing that they have is like. So they can be filtered by selecting properties that match a specific pattern. And so you can just do like. So this is kind of cool. Get child item, where object, property, name, like, ship wildcard, right? So that's pretty helpful. And then you get this ship flag.txt. So read through all that. And then the next one is we can select object. So we can pick a specific property from something and then only have that returned to us. So like in this case, see how we get last write time and we get extra stuff in here. If we don't need that, we can just do get child item, then pipe that into select object, name length. Now we only have the name of the file and the length of the file. So that's what select object does. Very useful. And again, if you don't remember these, or if you 3 weeks from now you're doing something and you see sort object or where object and you're like, I want to understand how that works again, I know I've run into it before, use the get help command and it'll explain it and give you examples. So that's all of those, which are useful. These are all very useful for filtering. So now, let's see, they give us a little challenge. They want us to build a pipeline of commandlets to sort and filter output with the goal of displaying the largest file in this directory. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cd into that directory. Oh wait, no, not copy, paste. Oh, come on. Okay, I think I'm already there anyways. Okay, I am lost. So users, captain documents, captain cabin. So I'm gonna try this one more time. We're gonna cd. Here we go. Okay, so ls, I get all this stuff, and what they want me to do is they want me to figure out how to filter it with a pipeline of commandlets so that it displays the largest file. So the first thing I would do is I would ls, and then I would pipe that into sort object, and I would sort them based on length. So let's see what I get there. Okay, but I just want the top one. So is there a way? I'm gonna go over into another tab real quick and Google it. So I'm just Googling if I can adjust the order of sort and how I can do that. Okay, so they say provide the descending parameter. So I don't know if that goes before or after. I'm just gonna put it right there. Okay, great. So now I have it in the right order. And then, by the way, I'm hitting the up arrow to get back to the command that I had written previously. So now that I have that, I want to pipe it. And what do I want to pipe it into? I'm going to Google, is there a way to select the first file in PowerShell? So I just asked Google if there's a way that I can just select the first file in PowerShell, and it gave me first or select object and then -first1. So I'm going to copy and paste that. So this is what Google told me to do. Select object -first1. So then if I enter all that, it gives me the ship flag.txt, which is the longest file. So, and it says right here, their length or size property. So length and size, same thing, because I'm pretty sure in the question they asked us for the largest file. So by length is the same thing. So that's how I would do it. Go through, try and do it. Again, with all these walkthroughs, you should try and do it yourself first before you resort to watching a walkthrough. But if you just watched me do it now, you should honestly, now that you've seen kind of the method, you should just see if there's another way that you can do it. Maybe there's a way that's more efficient, that takes less piping and fewer commandlets. I don't know. You can try it out, but we're going to take a look at what they did. And it looks like, oh, hey, look at that. It's the same. So that's kind of cool. The power of Google, I guess. Okay, so that's that. And now you have a little thing you can do with it. So the last thing they kind of want to talk about is select string. And this is going to search for text patterns within a file. So it's a lot like grep and find string in Windows command. So here's an example of how they do it. They do select string, path. They give you the path of what the file they're actually looking in. Then they give you the pattern. In this case, they're looking for the pattern hat. And then they feed you the line that has hat in it. And it actually has it in there multiple times. Or wait, no, sorry. This isn't one line. So this is the file and then this is the actual line. And so this is what they're hitting on, and then they're displaying that. So again, a lot like grep, where it'll give you the line, and commandlet supports regex, or regular expressions. So if you use those a lot, you can use them in PowerShell just like you can in most places. So regex, super useful. Now down to the question, how would you retrieve the items in the current directory with size greater than 1000? So avoid using quotes. So with size greater than 1000, would it be select object? Well, you know what? Let me think about it first, because they have the format here. So select object, let's get an example of that. And then it's based on something. Select object, what is the one? Oh, I have to display the, okay. So I can't go straight into select object. I think what they want me to do is get child item, pipe, select object, because that's what the single character is. Select object, and then let's see the example. They have name and length, so I could just do, let's see their examples. Or I could do where object, property, length. I bet you that's what they want us to do. Because yeah, again, if I did get child item and then if I went straight to select object, I would be selecting a specific object from all of those children. So I was mistaken. That's not what they want us to do. They want get child item where object, property, size is greater than or equal to 100. So I'm going to actually steal this and just paste that in here, and then I'm going to work from here. So get child item where object, property, instead of name, I want to do size, and instead of like, I want to do is greater than or equal to, which we can find up here, so -GE. And then instead of ship, I would do 100. And again, here it asked us to omit all of the quotes, so, or all the quotation marks. So we'll see if that's right. Okay, it didn't like that. Maybe it doesn't like size, maybe it wants length. Yep, okay, so it doesn't like size, it likes length, even though here they say size. So that might be a little bit tricky if you got stuck on that, you know, no worries, that's normal. But that's the kind of thing is once you've gotten that far, if you were like, why isn't this working? You could take this, plug it into Google or ChatGPT or something and say, why isn't this command working? And it would tell you straight away, oh, size is not what they want, is not, you know, they refer to length in PowerShell. So with that, we are done with that question, and we are done with task 5. It's on to task 6, system and network information. So here, the get computer info commandlet is going to give you system information, and it's going to give you a bunch of good stuff. And then it's basically system info. So same thing. If you know how to use system info, get computer info is going to be very similar. Gives you all sorts of good stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it. They're just telling you that those are equivalent. Make sure you remember that one. And again, my guess is that there's an alias for system info. And I'm right. So you can even type in system info and it still works in PowerShell. So again, one of the reasons why PowerShell is cool. Now, the next thing that they want to show you, make sure you read through all that, by the way, and try it out yourself. Now, the next thing they want to show you is get local user. So you can check out local user accounts on the system. So get local user, and then it'll give you the name and a description. So that's kind of cool. Okay, yeah, so get local user. Then Similar to ipconfig, you have get net IP configuration, which is going to give you detailed information about network interfaces on your system. So, and then it looks like get net IP address is going to give you even more detail. So let's take a look at the difference between those. So I'm going to test these out and see what we get here. Or just kidding. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. So this is similar. The getnet IP configuration is similar to ipconfig, but the getnet address, my guess is this is going to be similar to ipconfig/all, right? Where it gives you extra detail. So that's useful to know. So there's a difference. So keep that in mind. Again, a lot of the times aliases work for these. So just remember that. Read through both of those, and then it's down to the questions. Other than your current user and default administrator account, what other user is enabled on the target machine? So I always like to see, oh, it doesn't like users. Here's the other thing. A lot of times, yeah, command not found. Okay, sometimes I just like to see if there's other aliases that are a lot easier. So in this case, they want get local user. And if we do that, we can see we have administrator, captain, default account, guest, a utility account, and then this pirate. And I assume that's what they're looking for. I mean, there is captain on here, but yeah. So pirate, that's the answer to that one. Next question. This lad has hidden his account among the others with no regard for our beloved captain. What is the motto he has so bluntly put as his account description? So let's see, back to pirate, his account description. A merry life and a short one. I kind of like that. Okay, last question. Now a small challenge to put it all together. This shady lad that we just found hidden among the local users has his home folder in the C users directory. Can you navigate the file system and find the hidden treasure inside the pirate's home? Let's see, so where am I at? So yeah, let's cd users, and then let's ls, what have we got here? Yeah, so cd, and so here again, just like in Linux and in other command lines, you can hit the tab, and if there's only one thing left, in this case I typed in cdp, then I hit tab, so it's going to take me straight to that. It's going to fill in pirate for me. And then I want a cdh for hidden treasure chest. And then what have we got? And then let's cat bigtreasure.txt. Ooh. And here is our flag. So that's the answer to that. And with that, we have finished task number 6. On to task number 7, real-time system analysis. So we can use get process, and that's going to give us a detailed view of all of the running processes, right? Very useful, especially in like forensic stuff or defensive stuff when you're trying to see if, what's going on inside a computer. And then similarly, get services allows us to get information about the state of services on the machine. And so we can see, is this service running? Is it stopped? And all that. So get process, get service, pretty straightforward. Then if we want to monitor network connections, we can do getNet TCP connection, and this will give us all the current TCP connections. So helpful. And yeah, like they say, incident response or malware analysis, like people will use this kind of stuff. So very useful, those commands. And then the last one they want to show us is get file hash, which again, also useful for like threat hunting or malware detection, because you can just get the hash of something real quick and then see if it's malicious or not. So get file hash, give it the path, and then give it what file it is that you want to hash. So there's that. Now down to the questions. In the previous task, you found a marvelous treasure carefully hidden in the target machine. What is the hash of the file that contains it? Okay. So I actually think, is it shipflag.txt? I think I might just be able to copy this out of laziness. Oh no, it's not. But still, instead of doing shipflag.txt, I'm gonna do big treasure.txt, and that should give me the whole hash. Here we go. I want that. There we go. So what property retrieved by default by get contains information about the process that has started the connection? I'm not sure I get that question. So we're just gonna do the get net TCP connection. Is it this one that's established? But what exactly is it asking for? So what property? Okay, so it's a property retrieved by default. So we didn't add any additional commands to this or anything else to this command line. Contains information about the process that has started the connection. State, applied setting, local address, local port, remote address, remote port, state, applied setting. Is that it? Okay, get net TCP connection. So I did that. Maybe in their example, owning process. Okay, is mine just not? Okay, yeah. So I just clearly didn't have it long enough. Owning process. So that's what that is. So owning process. Now, last question. It's time for another small challenge. Some vital service has been installed on this pirate ship to guarantee that the captain can always navigate safely. But something isn't working as expected, and the captain wonders why. Investigating, they find out the truth. At last, the service has been tampered with. The shady lad from before has modified the service display name to reflect his very own motto, the same that he put in his user description. What, with this information and the PowerShell knowledge you have built so far, can you find the service name? So we're looking at services. He's tampered with the service display name. So my guess is I could do get service, and then we have this display name, and he tampered with it. Well, let's see how many processes are running. I might just be able to do I can't spell. Okay, so there we go. That's not giving me a whole lot, so I'm thinking they want something else. What was the question again? Oh, the service, not the process. Okay, good distinction. So let's get service and see what we have. Do we have just like a mountain of services? We do. So if we wanted to, we could pipe this in. So it doesn't really want to show me. So we'll do get service, and then we'll pipe that. What can we pipe that into? Let's do select object display name. Okay, so that's why I don't actually need the dash. I can just do display name. So now I have all the display names. And now what do I want? What does it say here? So I'm gonna, instead of selecting object, I'm gonna do where object. And then I should be able to do, or do I just do display name, and then we're gonna do like, and then what do I want it to be like? I can't remember his motto, so let's look back at our previous answer. Is this where we got his motto? A merry life and a short one. So let's just do merry. So that doesn't give me anything. Oh, and then if I do wildcard, will that pull up services? Okay. So instead, maybe I gotta do wildcard anything before, marry, wildcard anything after. There we go. Okay, so the name is Pirate S Compass. Okay, that was a little tricky. That was a good learning thing though. So at first I thought it was a process, which I didn't read the question good. So it was actually inside a service. So then once I did that, I thought, oh, well, let me narrow it down to display name by selecting object. And by the way, display name did not need the dash in front of it. But then after thinking about it, I was like, I don't want that. I want the whole object, because I need to know the name. I just know that the display name is where he put his motto. So then I tried a couple of things like Mary, that didn't work, like Windows, but that's because when I typed in Mary, I forgot I need the wildcards. So, and I knew that Mary was in his motto, so I tested it out with Windows to make sure it would pull up all the display names with Windows in it. And then I tried it again, but this time using wildcards around Mary, and I was able to find it. So that was kind of the process, a bit long there. But submit that, and with that we are done with task 7. Now it's on to task 8, scripting. Okay, so scripting is basically you can write a series of commands, and then it'll automatically run through it for you. So hopefully you kind of have an idea of what scripting is. I mean, I didn't give a great explanation, but still read through this. And then this is going to talk about why scripting is useful for blue team. You know, you can have scripts that will automatically comb through logs and find specific things you're looking for, stuff like that. For red teaming, why is it useful? You can run scripts that will automatically enumerate a host and see if there's anything you can exploit. And then system administrators, you could write a script that could remotely manage a system, or check a system updates, things like that. So script writing is useful for everybody. And so before they conclude this task about scripting, they want to teach us a few things. And one is the invoke commandlet. And basically what this does is this will execute commands on a remote system. And this is super useful for system administrators when you're, managing stuff remotely, and it's useful for penetration testers if they're trying to attack something remotely. This invoke command, if done right, is just like executing a command on the actual machine that you're remoting to. So they give us the get help page here. Make sure you read through all of this, by the way. It's helpful. And then the get help invoke command, they give us the output here. And again, we can look at examples if we need to. So read through that. And then let's see. So basically it's super powerful. And you can append -script blocked parameter, and you can execute literally any command that you want. So super useful. They don't go into great detail here. They mostly just tell you, hey, it's important, don't forget, invoke command. You might see it a lot, and you will. And they give you 2 examples. One is just with the computer name and server, but then if you're doing something that's like remote, then you have to give it credentials. And again, with this script block tag, you can really put in any command that you want and execute it. So you can see why this would be useful, hopefully. So let's take a look at the question. Make sure you've read everything. What is the syntax to execute the command get service? Okay, so that would be on a remote computer named Royal Fortune. Assume you don't need to provide credentials to establish the connection. For the sake of this question, avoid the use of quotes. Okay, so we don't have to use credentials. So the first is going to be invoke command. And then let's see, after that they're going to want computer name, and that's going to be Royal Fortune. And then let's see, we don't need any, I think that's all we would need. And then let's do script block. And then yes, there's a space between these. And then they want us to do the get service and then end that script block. Oh, well, let's see if I can spell block right. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so again, invoke command, computer name, Royal Fortune, because again, so if you need help, you can just look at their example 1, because they got us examples. So invoke command, in this case they're doing file path, computer name server, but we don't have a file path or anything. We're only given the computer name. So we just invoke command based on computer name, and then we don't have any credentials. So then we can just go straight into script block, and then we put in the get service command. So that's all we would have to do for that. So we can hit correct answer on that, which we already have. And with that, we're done with task number 8. Now it's on to task number 9, the conclusion. So basically, PowerShell, it's a lot. I know this is a long video, but super important. Gotta know it. Make sure you've read through this, understand it, tried it out. And then next up is the Linux command line room. So mark complete and then check out that room. Now, if you found this video helpful, please give it a like and subscribe. That helps me out a ton. And with that, you have finished the Windows PowerShell room from TryHackMe.